What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave, and I've decided to come into the office here for the next 2 days, Thursday, today, and then Friday, mostly because this microphone picks up a bit better when it comes to lower voice or audio, and projecting is a little bit harder on the voice. That is coming back, but I think next Monday, so start next week, we'll be back to normal with the PlayStation 3 Wave background, the whole thing there. But for today, we have some interesting stuff to go over, which does include one of the strangest developments I've seen so far for the Switch 2, as there are discussions that an actual Switch 2 is available for some of these accessory makers to buy, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about more layoffs, these hitting Rocksteady, of course, after what we saw with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and we have Microsoft now talking about something that at least and I'm sure many people have been waiting for, the idea of unifying Xbox and Windows when it comes to the handheld market. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members to the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below this video. And we're going to start today with a CES announcement that I just thought was... it's just very strange. My Arcade, of course, has been on a roll. They've been all over the place, making deals with many publishers and even at this point, kind of platform holders with Atari. Remember they announced that handheld? Well, now we have another handheld, which, I mean, you can see it here. This is part of the Game Station Retro lineup, and this is their Game Station Retro Go. Portable handheld, of course, 8-inch high-resolution display, a rechargeable battery, a very awkward-looking position for the D-pad and then the analog stick at the top. Of course, A, B, X, and Y on the right side with some other buttons below it. And what is interesting about this, though, is you have both Capcom and Bandai Namco games, so it's a collection between both companies on one platform. So at least from that aspect, it's kind of interesting to hear about how there is Mega Man and Final Fight and Street Fighter, Dig Dug, Pac-Man, Galaga, all on one device. But on the other hand, My Arcade is, I don't want to say stretching themselves too thin, but they are certainly releasing a lot of stuff that still has, we'll say, questionable quality at the end of the day. But still, I guess they technically have a new handheld 8-inch display with all kinds of games from Bandai and Capcom. Also, it does look like we have a Pokemon Presents to look forward to. This coming at the end of February, which would be Pokemon Day. And this was discovered, we can see, this is over on Twitter from Matt. Says, thanks for confirming Pokemon Presents 2025 Niantic. This was seemingly a data mine from Pokemon Go, as it shows the Pokemon Go Tour 2025 for Pokemon Day with Pokemon Presents. And the thing I guess is interesting is it seems like at least the theme here for that tour is referencing the 5th generation for Pokemon, which is starting to bring into maybe some hopes that there could potentially be maybe a remake in line for Pokemon Black and White. At the very least, we would hear about, in terms of the video game side of things, we assume Pokemon Legends ZA, and maybe a brand new generation. I mean, the thing is, we are sort of coming up on that timetable of them at least talking about it, but they have to get ZA out first. And I assume Nintendo, of course, will want a new generation, a brand new Pokemon game on their Switch 2 sooner rather than later. Would it come out maybe in time for the holidays? Well, I think that depends on where Pokemon ZA is. Otherwise, though, I guess we'd be looking towards 2026 for the launch of the next generation. But looks like Pokemon Day, we should have a new presentation with Pokemon Presents, which, now you really think about it, probably shouldn't be that surprising. Oh, and I have good news for people who want to play more Monster Hunter Wilds ahead of launch, that being at the end of February, of course, February 28th, as there's going to be another beta. This is actually going to cover 2 different weekends, and they shared this over on YouTube. Now, the 2 dates we have, that would start February 6th, run to the 9th that weekend, and then February 13th to the 16th. Now, this is going to be across all different platforms, and they will have crossplay enabled. And on top of that, it seems that if you participate in any of these betas, you will actually get some bonuses for the full release, again, when that comes out at the end of February. So at least a good way for people to check out the game ahead of launch. That was one of the reasons they say they did this, is because there were people who didn't get a chance to play the initial beta. So they said, you know what, let's do a second one. We'll span it over the course of 2 weekends and sort of be like, I don't say early access, but almost like a last minute demo for people to try out ahead of the release. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Switch 2, which has completely taken over the internet. Not because Nintendo has announced it, no. It's because everyone else seems to want to announce it, at least accessory makers and manufacturers who I mean, let's face it, it's an easy way for them to get publicity. And Genki in particular, who's making a wide range of accessories for this next generation device from Nintendo, is taken full advantage of, and it is working for them, as I've seen many outlets seemingly do coverage of their mock-up. Like IGN had an entire article they wrote up, them measuring it and checking it and comparing it to the regular Switch, and they went by the booth and did a whole thing on it. So, I mean, yeah, in terms of Genki getting in the spotlight and having people check them out, it does appear to be effective. Now, we have something interesting that's happened here, as an outlet, a website, did seemingly talk to Genki as well as many other accessory manufacturers who, I mean, there were a lot of them were at CES and a lot of them were talking about Switch 2. And we've already seen over the last month or two, many different manufacturers for accessories just start listing stuff and talking about it, making renders and all kinds of stuff. So it does seem like, yes, the dimensions were going around, but there are questions of, does somebody actually have a Switch 2? Is that a thing right now? Well, we can see this is posted up. This is over on Numerama, and this is through translation with Google, but they say, we are able to see several models of the console, which, according to their owners, are molds built from authentic copy. Like, I don't think anyone is looking at these because it's so obvious that these are like 3D prints or molds. Like, no one's looking at them saying, hey, this is a Switch 2, absolutely, like authentic. No, they're copies. But since it is not in partnership with Nintendo, Genki can show its accessories in advance without breaking any contract. He tells us that he has developed 8 accessories, which will be released at the same time as the console in April, according to his latest information. So yes, apparently, at least according to Genki, they expect to be able to launch next to the Switch 2 in April. So in just 3 months or so. And that's an interesting one to hear that, oh, wow, the Switch is coming out in a few months and we still don't have the official announcement from Nintendo. I mean, sure, Nintendo could absolutely announce and then launch it a few months later. I actually have no problem with the hardware doing that. I don't think they do either. It would actually be more about the launch titles, because you feel like if it's a big 3D Mario, you want more than 2.5 to 3 months to market the thing fully and get it ready for launch. But I guess maybe in their mind, hey, Metroid Prime could do it. Like, we could have new Metroid Prime 4 next to it as a cross-gen release. That would be a big one. Or, look, 3D Mario is so popular, and it's such a strong IP or franchise, we can do that. We can run it to market very quickly alongside the Switch, and that's it. But we do have a bit more here that gets very, very strange and actually kind of sketchy. They go on saying, according to some accessory makers, it's possible to get one, that being the Switch 2, on the black market if you put up the money. This could be a lie to keep the myth alive, but accessory makers are proudly claiming to own the real Nintendo console. The fact that they don't provide any details about the software is suspicious, but several brands, including Genki, say their mold was made from an actual console, not 3D blueprints. And this, as I mentioned, is where things get a bit off the rails. Now they're talking about the black market or something, and I guess it's possible a Switch 2 could have snuck out of the factory at some point and it's being passed around in like China or something, and that's how they're getting the measurements and scans. Because I will say this, it is interesting how similar a lot of these renders look from these different companies making accessories and then being confident enough to actually release the products. Some of these accessories you can buy now, screen protectors, cases, they're out there on places like Alibaba, AliExpress. So it'd be interesting if they would want to launch those products without being sure that it could fit on the system. And my thought here is that the dimensions got out there, but it would be very interesting if there was really a Switch 2 floating around. The reason I don't think there is one is because what would be your first thought if somebody put a Switch 2 in your hands? It'd be to turn the thing on. And we have nothing when it comes to software at this point, but apparently everything when it comes to the Joy-Cons or pictures of the dock or the Switch sideways with an AI background. It just seems weird to me that no one has thought to turn the thing on or at least try out the OS itself. So maybe shells got out there and that's how we got to this point without the motherboard. But just something to monitor here. It's also possible that many of these people who were attending CES, manufacturers like Genki or others, it was more or less convention talk, as in just kind of kicking things around and laughing and throwing stuff at the wall and being like, oh yeah, this is a thing and this is a thing. And really half of it's true, but hey, it's working for them. As I mentioned, people are going up to their booth like they have an actual Switch 2 right now, and it's just one all made out of plastic. So hey, I guess that would be the next step. Is somebody actually show up with a leaked system that can turn on, and then Nintendo probably will hit the ceiling over it. Next up, let's talk about layoffs that have hit Rocksteady, which this would be the second wave recently. I believe a few months ago, like half the QA department was laid off. WB has not at all acknowledge that, or these ones, which this is coming to us from Eurogamer, where they say half a dozen staff impacted by the redundancies has spoken to Eurogamer to confirm the job losses under condition of being anonymous to protect their careers. Roles impacted include members of Rocksteady's programming and artist teams, as well as more QA staff. Now, to me, this isn't very surprising, and it's the unfortunate nature of business and the gaming world. See, with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, it was a live service game. That was the big push, right? Hey, this is something we're going to support for potentially years on end if it's successful enough, and it wasn't. Which means all the people they maybe hired up to really support a roadmap going forward over years and years in the future aren't really needed anymore, and sadly, people then get fired or just laid off in this case. And really the future around Rocksteady is still very much in question. What are they going to do next, if anything? Because some are thinking that they might just shut down. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they are going to indeed work on a new Batman game. That would be the most obvious thing for them now. And for me, it's still Batman Beyond. I don't know if they want to attempt a Superman game, and I don't think it would even make sense because it's not going to line up with the movie in time. So maybe Batman would make more sense, or they can just take a look around at what WB has in the works right now for their now rebooted DC universe for their movies, pick something out and try to have it within proximity to the movie just to ride the wave of hype maybe when it's in theaters. Otherwise, though, return to what you know. Don't get weird about it. Make a good single-player Batman game. To me, again, Batman Beyond, that would be at least interesting and different enough from the Arkhamverse that they've created, which it could still be in that universe, but just set further into the future with Terry McGinnis, and I think it could be a lot of fun just to see what they can do with some of the more futuristic gadgets and sort of the atmosphere and the world that's already in place from, I remember watching with the cartoon back in the day, and kind of avenge that PS1 Batman Beyond game, which was just, it was definitely exciting for people who picked it up because we were riding that high of the cartoon. But Rocksteady, yeah, layoffs continue. Again, not shocking since they finish up Suicide Squad. We'll see what their plans are hopefully in the future, and hopefully it doesn't take as long as it did to go from 2015 with Arkham Knight all the way up to 2024 with Suicide Squad. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft, as of course Jason Ronald was at that Lenovo Legion Go S Steam OS presentation, and it was more about the future of these PC gaming handhelds. And it appears that Microsoft is going to make a move that I've been waiting for them to do. I've been waiting to hear more about it, and it seems like we're not going to have to wait too long because they are looking to start rolling some of these changes and upgrades out this year. Now we can see this is posted up by The Verge. They say Jason Ronald did hint on stage that Microsoft plans to bring the Xbox experience to Windows PCs rather than the other way around, and expanded on that considerably after The Verge caught up with him later, saying, quote, "We've been really innovating for a long time in the console space, and as we partner across the industry, it's really about how do we bring those innovations that we've incubated and developed in the console space and bring them to PC and bring them to the handheld gaming space. I would say it's bringing the best of Xbox and Windows together because we have spent the last 20 years building a world-class operating system, but it's really locked to the console. What we're doing is we're really focused on how do we bring those experiences for both players and developers to the broader Windows ecosystem. We should see changes this very year rather than needing to wait for an Xbox handheld that might still be years away." And this is great because if you have one of these PC gaming handhelds, you don't need me to tell you that the Windows really just is not set up for it. It really is not. I mean, you usually end up using the touch screen and you're trying to just hit any of the programs, then scrolling through it. It's not great. SteamOS is light years ahead of Windows when it comes to supporting the handheld gaming PC layout. And for Windows to really catch up to that, yeah, they have to bring an Xbox. And it's basically Xbox merging with Windows to create something that I would assume looks like the Xbox console just on, say, a ROG Ally X or Lenovo, where they're of course going to have a Windows handheld as well, along with their Z2 Extreme setup that's going to launch sometime, I think, later this year. And if that is the case and Microsoft can pull it off, I think it will at least close the gap right now between Windows being viewed as just a bad matchup for these gaming PC handhelds to being one that could even be preferred over SteamOS. Because one of the reasons I do put up with Windows on, say, a ROG Ally X is because Game Pass is attached to that, and I have Game Pass Ultimate. So I have it on console, and I have it on PC, and the save data does transfer back and forth. So it is super convenient to have that, and I'm really hoping they can set it up so it is like the Xbox. And the other part is, I hope this maybe works to fix or update or upgrade that Windows Store experience, which is also really, really frustrating. So if they can kind of work all that out, I think there would be a bright future ahead for Microsoft when it comes to the handheld space, because just recently Steam has just kind of been slapping them around a bit, and it's something I would like to see Microsoft compete with them a bit better, and having Windows get to that point could have SteamOS and Microsoft going back and forth trying to really give gamers a better and better experience. And that'll just be good for all of us. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about an unfortunate game cancellation that was announced yesterday. And I say unfortunate because it was a Transformers game that at least had some promise. It wasn't a game mill, phone it in kind of game for Transformers. No, this looked like something maybe akin to War for Cybertron, like that kind of quality. Well, not any longer. Unfortunately, this we can see was posted up by Splash Damage, where they say, today we have some very difficult news to share. The decision has been made to end development of Transformers Reactivate. This means we will be scaling down to refocus our efforts on other projects. Unfortunately, despite every effort, a number of roles across the studio are now potentially at risk of redundancy. Now, this is a game that was announced back at the Game Awards 2022, and it was supposed to be an online, like 1 to 4 player action co-op game. There was some footage that was posted actually yesterday. This was by Luna over on Twitter, just kind of showcasing some seemingly early in development Unreal Engine 5 gameplay of it. And I mean, it looked cool in the sense that you can transform seemingly at any time, so I assume it's like a push of a button, and it looks a bit more fast-paced and frantic, which Again, is interesting. It's something that makes sense for Transformers, an action-based style game, and being able to play with other people could also be fun. I'm curious if this would have turned into a live service initiative, which would have probably put a lot of people off. But I mean, let's face it just got to the point where Splash Damage, I guess, just could not hold this up any longer, and they had to cancel it. And that's unfortunate. Again, not necessarily because I thought this game was going to be incredible. I mean, it could have, but we just don't know. It's more unfortunate that there was a Transformers game that didn't look cheap necessarily or sound like it was going to be cheap, again, based on even the trailer itself. It looked like there was a lot of effort that went into that. Instead, that was going to be left on the cutting room floor, and I guess Splash Damage is more or less going to focus in on things that they can get out, I would say, sooner rather than later, because it seems like even just they are having a hard time in general just staying solvent. So maybe Splash Damage can get things worked out. But unfortunately for that to happen, Transformers Reactivate ended up being a casualty in this whole thing. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. And that is Game of the Year Madness Day 16. This will end the first round with Infinite Wealth, Like a Dragon, going over Plucky Squire 72% to 28%. Not surprising, again, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth for many people was the best game of 2024. Little surprised it didn't make its way into the Game of the Year conversation at the Game Awards, but still, it going over the Plucky Squire, not too surprising. However, after now the first 16 rounds going into the second round, of course, you're going to see winners going up against winners, and it's going to be some very, very interesting matchups actually starting with today. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Vice, who says, everything about the Switch 2 is getting revealed except for the one thing I care about, which is the games. Yeah, it's been nothing but hardware, zoomed in shots, cropped pictures, images of the side of the system, the back of the dock. It's for people who are really into the hardware, even down to the chip itself and the die. That's all out there. Nothing with games, though, which is weird. A lot of times we'll hear about games that are going to the next system kind of leak out a bit early, and I think most of us can expect some games from Nintendo. Like a 3D Mario seems obvious to any of us, so if that leaked out, like, oh, Nintendo's going to do a 3D Mario game for the next system, would people really be that surprised? They'd be like, oh yeah, I mean, obviously. So that's the thing is, even if that happened, I still don't think it'd make the headlines that these hardware leaks are making right now. I mean, we're to the point where accessory manufacturers are just flaunting their accessories for the Switch too, even just making models and running around at CES with them. Nintendo's not there, but that'd be really awkward if they were there. Think about Nintendo and some of their executives walking the CES floor and looking over and seeing Genki with their white and black mock-up of the Switch 2. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to see the latest Game Boy Advance system for 2025, where you can play all your different titles off of an SD card in that familiar form factor. I'll leave it below that. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.